What's going on, everybody? Tom here with Black Sheep Keto, and welcome to another recipe video just for you subscribers out there. And if you're not a subscriber yet, please consider doing so. Now today we are going to be making a delicious ketogenic treat, which is a ketogenic glazed donut. Now the problem I've had with a lot of them is they taste overly eggy and the glaze isn't right, but everybody that I've given my recipe to has compared them to those Entenmann donuts that you get from the grocery store. So I take that as quite the compliment. Now if that sounds good to you guys, hang on tight so I can show you how to make it. Alright everybody, welcome to the recipe. Now we are going to start by combining our dry ingredients in this bowl here. So we're going to start off here with 1 cup of superfine almond flour, 1/4 cup of Lakanto's monk fruit and erythritol blend. This is the granulated one. We have 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, followed by 1/2 teaspoon of xanthan gum. Now this is used so I can cut down on the eggs and it doesn't get overly eggy, but it will still stay together, in case anyone was wondering. And 1/4 teaspoon of pink salt. Now I'm going to go ahead and combine this pretty well and make sure I break up all those clumps of almond flour. As a note, the reason I put the sweetener in with the dry ingredients instead of the wet is because erythritol does not dissolve in water, so it doesn't really make sense to try to cream it in the wet ingredients since it's not going to dissolve anyway. That looks good enough. We're going to set that aside for a second here. Now in this bowl I have a 1/4 cup of melted butter that I've allowed to cool for a few minutes so that it's not too hot. To that I'm going to add 2 eggs, 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now we're just going to mix this thing until it's well combined. Now we're going to take our dry ingredients and pour the wets directly into the dries. Try to make sure you get as much of that out as possible. And go ahead and whisk this until it's well combined. Now to make our donut shapes, we are going to be using a donut pan just like this one, which you can find on Amazon. I will put a link in the recipe, which will also be linked in the description below. And we're going to use a little bit of this spray coconut oil and make sure we get a nice coating on this pan. And now it's just a matter of evenly filling our donut molds with the batter. Now that they all look like they have a relatively even amount of batter, just go ahead and use the back of your spoon and spread them around so that they're roughly the same height in each donut pan. You may need to move some of the batter around if you didn't fill them evenly. Now what I like to do is take a little bit more of our coconut spray and just hit the tops of each and every one of them. Then I take my spoon once again and just kind of make sure that I have an even surface. And they're going to go into a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven for between 15 and 18 minutes. Once they get kind of a golden brown color, they're ready to be pulled out. Now here are what our donuts look like. Once the timer went off, I checked them. They looked like they were cooked all the way through, so I went ahead and flipped the tray over and have them on a baking rack here, just so they can kind of cool off. You don't want to frost them until they're cool. So I'm going to check back with you guys once these things have cooled down sufficiently, and we'll make the glaze for them. Now that our donuts are starting to cool down and pretty much cool to the touch, it's time to make our glaze. So in this bowl, I have a 1/4 cup of melted butter. There are 4 teaspoons of heavy whipping cream right here. Guys, make sure this is at least room temperature or even slightly warm. Otherwise, you're going to cause that butter to start hardening. So we're going to add the 4 teaspoons of heavy whipping cream to our 1/4 cup of melted butter. And then a 1/4 cup of the Lakanto's powdered monk fruit and erythritol blend. This is 2 times sweeter than sugar and is the only sweetener that I have found that worked well. So if you guys are going to try other sweeteners, just be warned, I tried a bunch and this is the one that worked the best. I will put a link in the recipe to where you can buy this. And then we're just going to use our fork and mix this until it becomes a nice smooth glaze. Beat all of those clumps of the powdered sugar out. And then we're going to need to let this sit for, I don't know, a couple of minutes so that it hardens. As you can see, it's a little bit runny now, and that's going to run straight off the donut. So we just let it hang out for a minute or two until it thickens up just a little bit. Now once your glaze can easily coat a spoon, as you can see here, it's ready to start using. I do like double dunking the donuts, so you don't need to let it get super thick, but I think this is thick enough. As a note, I also put a baking sheet underneath my rack. That way, it kind of helps with the mess that this is going to create. So what I like to do is kind of put my finger through the hole of the donut, give it a nice little spin in here, and then flip it back over here. So now let's go through with the second dunk. You may notice that the bottom of these are slightly flattened from the baking rack, and that's okay. They're still going to taste good. It's just the weight of the donut pushing down on the nice fluffy texture. Now that those are all double dipped, it is time for the hardest part, and that is letting them dry. This glaze will probably take between 30 minutes and an hour to become nice and hard, and if you leave them out overnight, so say you make this the night before, it'll have a really nice kind of crispy glaze texture to it. So with that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the finished product, and then I'll meet you back for the taste test. And now that you guys have seen the recipe, we are here with the taste test. So I've got one of these delicious donuts right here. Almost lost it there. As you can see, the frosting is nice and stable. The glaze is not fingerprinting. It's actually doing pretty well, and they look absolutely delicious. So it's time to taste it. Now that is a very good donut, guys. It is very sweet, which is kind of what you're aiming for in a donut, but it's not overly sweet to the point where you start getting those negative taste effects of all the different sweeteners that we use on a keto diet. The actual texture of it, hopefully you guys can see that. It's kind of like a cross between a cake donut and a raised donut. It's very hard to get that very light, fluffy raised donut texture using ketogenic ingredients, but I try to get as close as I could. So I would say it's somewhere between a cake and a raised donut. As far as everything goes, you actually don't even have to put that frosting or glaze on there if you don't want to. I've eaten these things without it so many times, and I think it's delicious. So if you're not a fan of adding that extra glaze to it, it's totally cool to try without them. With that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and close the video. If you like this video, leave it a like. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section. And if you have not subscribed yet, please, guys, do me a huge, huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, show some love, and I will see you in the next one.